समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The river water issue between India and Pakistan is sort of in the debate, in discussion, or in controversy again, and it will stay with us for quite a long time. And the big reason right now that the river waters issue has hit the headlines and controversy and has caused a lot of consternation in Pakistan. The Pakistani official spokesman has said dire things, held out dire warnings to India. Many Pakistani commentators have said, we will choke India if India chokes Pakistan for water. One Pakistani editor, a very prominent editor, former minister, former chairman of Pakistan Cricket Board, etc., 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 also a friend of mine, has even said on his show कि हम इसको एक मिसाइल मार के उड़ा देंगे. If India makes this project, we'll blow it up with the missile, etc. That is the two projects that Modi government has announced or India has announced on the Chenab River. The fact is it's been there since we became two countries and definitely since 1960 when Jawaharlal Nehru, out of his sense of eternal goodness, signed the Indus Waters Treaty. Indus Waters Treaty basically divided the two sets of rivers coming out of the larger Punjab Himalayan region, Punjab Himalayan Kashmir region. These were divided into two categories. One were the western rivers. Western rivers were Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. In the treaty, Pakistan was given rights to almost all of the water of these rivers for irrigation, for whatever purpose they wanted to use it. India only had the right to keep a minor percentage of this water. I will tell you how much. Roughly around 3% of all this water. The fact is, India hasn't stored any of it so far, not because India doesn't want to, but India has not been able to. Anytime India has talked about building any storage, Pakistan has come up with objections, and this then goes into litigation. This goes to International Court of Arbitration at The Hague, and this goes on and on. This is a never-ending process. That's been on. Three rivers, the western rivers as these were called, Pakistan has the rights. India can draw power from these but not store water. The rivers on the eastern side, the three eastern rivers as these are called, that is Ravi, Beas and Satluj. In that order, Ravi, Beas and Satluj, India has the rights to 100% of their water. If India so wishes, India would not let even one drop of these waters go into Pakistan. It can use all of this water. That is how the basic split was done. However, after the Pahalgam massacre, the terrible Pahalgam massacre, India decided to put IWT, Indus Waters Treaty, in abeyance. India has not cancelled it. India has not repealed it. India has put it under abeyance. What that means is India says we are not obligated to follow any of the covenants in the treaty. However, we are not saying necessarily that we are violating the treaty. The fact also is that since then, India has continued to let water go into Pakistan. No water has been stopped. In fact, when there have been warnings of unusual flows of water, particularly anything that might threaten a flood, India has, as in the past, quite correctly informed the Pakistani side. That is the part that's working. Where is the change? The change is India is now saying that, look, all this while, because of your bloody mindedness, we were not able to do even what is our own and what we should be doing. What is that? That is building run-of-the-river power projects. Power projects that don't hold back water, but that can produce electricity. Now, if you produce electricity from water, nothing happens to the water. Water remains the same. You can again produce electricity from it. All you need is an incline. all you need is an incline, so water can fall from some altitude. Water doesn't lose anything if you run it through a power turbine. In fact, it takes me back to what has become a joke over time, but it was a reality because I have heard it myself. Maniram Bagri, I think the socialist leader at that point in the 1960s, 66 to 67, we were just urchins in class 6 and 7 in a little town called Sirsa in Haryana. It was then a one cinema hall town, and 67 elections were taking place. And I remember running off from school and following election processions, and Maniram Bagri saying that Nehru had built the Bhakra Dam. In Bhakra Dam, they would take all the power out of the water. So the wheat you eat is not the wheat that Gama Pahalwan ate in the past and became a world champion freestyle wrestler. Today, your sons are not able to become wrestlers of that strength because they are eating wheat made out of water from which electricity has already been taken out. That kind of nonsense might have worked in the politics of deep, rural, dry Haryana in 1967, 60 years ago, not now. India, however, has been prohibited or stopped or blocked by the Pakistanis from building any of these electricity projects, run-of-the-river electricity projects. It's also as a result of this that India has not been able to keep its own share of the water. Now the Indus system, the western river system, the western Indus river system, that is Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, that produces in Indian territory 135 to 140 million acre feet of water. Don't ask me to describe what's an acre foot. You can Google it because it'll be complicated. Let's just say that million acre feet is an enormous amount of water. In this case, these three rivers produce a total of 135 to 140 million acre feet of water, of which India is entitled under Indus Waters Treaty to keep stored 3.6 million acre feet. The fact is, until now, India has not been able to store any of this water, because India has not been able to build any storage. Besides this, India is entitled to use more water, about 20% of the Indus Valley waters for irrigation, mostly in the Jammu and Kashmir areas. Some of that's being used, but a lot of it isn't. It goes into Pakistan because India has not been able to build the projects or even temporary storage to use that water for irrigation, or in the case of Jhelum River, for navigation. There is an old Tulbul Barrage project, Tulbul Navigation Barrage project, that is to store just about 0.3 billion acre feet of water, just as the Jhelum emerges from Wooler Lake. That is to keep that water there to provide round the year navigation in Jhelum River. Even that's been blocked because of Pakistani protests. It does seem now that Modi government has started work on all of these. All of these, I will repeat to you, are still keeping India within its rights under the Indus Waters Treaty. It's not as if India is building a mega dam to stop large amounts of water going into Pakistan and diverting it elsewhere. One of these projects is in Jammu and Kashmir. That is where the Salal Dam is located. Salal Dam has a small reservoir which has got silted over time. It's got so filled with silt over time that it now stores very little water and is producing electricity much below its capacity of 690 megawatts. That desiltation project, it's been carried out by the public sector National Hydroelectric Power Corporation, NHPC. Tenders have been called. By mid-July, those tenders have to be filled in and the work will start. Now, this is desilting. Usually, I would have thought that Pakistanis will benefit with desilting. If India can hold back a little more water temporarily, it might in fact give Pakistan a little bit of a hedge from the floods it suffers from the Chenab almost every year in monsoon season. But India-Pakistan issues are never resolved in a reasonable manner. Everything becomes an izzat ka sawal. That's why this desilting has not been done. This is a relatively minor thing, but it's now being carried out without going to Pakistan, without discussing with Pakistan, without making any disclosure to them, and that's the reason the Pakistanis, this and combining many others, Pakistanis went to the Court of Arbitration at The Hague, whose verdict India has dismissed as illegitimate and as lacking in jurisdiction. That said, the second project that India has now announced, the second project on the same river, is far upstream. It's far upstream, not in Jammu and Kashmir, but in Himachal Pradesh, in the Lahaul-Spiti region, in fact, more precisely in the Lahaul region of Himachal Pradesh. Now look at how Chenab River is constituted. Chenab River starts out as two rivers in Himachal. Unlike Indus, which comes out of Tibet, even Satluj in Punjab, which comes out of Tibet, all the other rivers out of these originate from within Indian territory. Chenab originates from glaciers from the two sides of Baralacha Pass. Baralacha, if you've driven from Delhi to Leh by the Manali-Rohtang route, then you will go over the Baralacha Pass. That's the highest point. It's called Baralacha. From the glaciers to the east of Baralacha Pass arises a river called Chandra. It's a mountainous Himalayan river, very turbulent. In any season, it'll either scare the daylights out of you, if you're that type, or it will really delight you because it's such a beautiful Himalayan river. In the winter, very often it's frozen, or parts of it may be frozen, or you might even see frozen boulders flowing through it. It's a very wild river. That is Chandra. On the other side, say from the west of Baralacha Pass, rises the Bhaga River from glaciers. For quite some distance in Himachal Pradesh, these rivers follow different courses like this, divergent courses like this. Chandra flows about 115 kilometers. Bhaga, on the other hand, is smaller in length, 65 to 80 kilometers, but it has much more incline because it falls down that much steeper. These two rivers then meet at a place called Tandi. Tandi is about 8 kilometers from Kilong, which is the district headquarters of Lahaul. Now, when you cross the Rohtang Pass, or you go under the Rohtang Pass through Atal Tunnel, which has been built lately, and that's where you find tens of thousands cars lining up during the summer season, ruining the environment there and spewing all those diesel fumes into wonderful glacial mountains. When you cross that tunnel, if you say generally go right, I know this is very basic. If you go from the northern side of the tunnel, northern side opens out towards Lahaul. If you go to that side of the tunnel and sort of go right from there, that is where the Chandra River is coming down. That Chandra River at a place called Koksar. Koksar is a village. This is a very sparsely populated area. At Koksar, under this project, a 19-meter barrage will be built. This barrage is just 19 meters, just over 62 feet. It's not that high. It is about as high or maybe a little bit higher than an average home in South Delhi, for example. This will stop a bunch of water, but not that much water. It's not a reservoir that will block the river. What it will do is, it will divert some of that water. And where will that water go? That will be diverted through a tunnel. Now an 8.7 kilometer tunnel will be dug through the mountain ranges there to take the amount of water that tunnel can accommodate into the Beas River downstream. That will be transferred to the Beas River in the upper Beas catchment area near a place called Pando. Then it will be diverted again. Where will this river go? Where will this water go? This will not carry on with Beas. At Pando, which is 21 kilometers before Mandi, there's already a tunnel that takes water into one of the Satluj powerhouses. That is called the Dehar powerhouse. It's a 990 megawatt powerhouse. This water will also be taken through the tunnel into the Dehar powerhouse. So the capacity of that powerhouse will improve, or performance will improve, and then this will go in the Satluj system. Ultimately, it will come back to Beas because Beas and Satluj are very hard-working rivers. They are constantly being dammed diverted, and they are constantly meeting each other. Beas, before the river can cross into Pakistan, fully merges in the Satluj. That's a place called Harike Pattan, which is India's largest Ramsar site. That is near Firozpur. That's where the leftover waters of Beas meet the Satluj, and more canals take that water out, including the famous and historic Indira Gandhi Canal or Indira Gandhi Nehar that takes the water to the most distant regions of Rajasthan. Now, what is the issue with this water? Pakistanis claim that this will affect them by way of the total supply of water in the Chenab. The fact is that Chenab River itself has 24 million acre feet of water. This is water that is produced or created or that is collected in the catchment in India or on the Indian side of Kashmir. That is Himachal, Indian side of Kashmir, everywhere. That is about 24, some estimates say 25 to 26 million acre feet of water. This tunnel, the capacity of this tunnel and this project is to transfer a maximum of about 0.6 to 0.8 million acre feet of water. So less than 1 million acre feet of water. Even if you really push it, you might say 1 million acre feet of water. So it isn't that much water. It's a very small amount of water, given the total amount of water available. Chenab itself, I told you, can have anything from 24 to 26 million acre feet of water, of which India is already entitled to 1.98 or nearly 2 million acre feet of water, which India is not using at all. This, even if you dock it against that Indian quota, it will still account for less than a half of Indian quota. But these arguments today are not about reason. These arguments today are about maximalist positions. India has other projects on the Chenab, Salal Dam, which is the oldest, which is now being desilted, Baglihar, Dulhasti, Rattled. All of this, on all of these, India has been fighting with Pakistan over its basic pondage rights, that is, rights to store some water. That hasn't been allowed as yet because Pakistan keeps on protesting. Pakistan's concern is these projects will also now move on. That said, even that will not reduce the flow of Pakistan's share of these waters as yet, because first of all, I will not guarantee that that is not the intention. That might indeed be the intention. But what I can be sure of is that until now, India doesn't have the capability or infrastructure to store any of this water, and to build that infrastructure or capability for storage takes a long time. The Jhelum has 23 million acre feet of water, of which India is entitled to 1.54 MAF. That is combined with its share from the Indus, which is very small because Indus goes through Ladakh and really high mountains and then goes into Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So India has very little. India has a very small share of the Indus water. Indus, in fact, has most of the water that Pakistan is entitled to under the Indus Waters Treaty. So of the total amount of water that each river carries, Chenab is 24 to 26 million acre feet. Jhelum is about 23 to 24 million acre feet. Indus is 62 million acre feet, almost all of which is going to Pakistan's share. There's a lot to say about these rivers, and we will keep talking about these in the course of time. But let's focus today on the Chenab. Now, once again, we have to understand Chenab River. Total river is 974 kilometers, of which Chandra is about 115 to 20 in India, Bhaga is 65 to 80 in India, and then another 122 kilometers through Himachal Pradesh, and then Indian side of Jammu and Kashmir, that is 504 kilometers. So if you add it all up, the bulk of Chenab River actually goes through Indian territory. So those critics of IWT, Indus Waters Treaty, who say that Nehru was far too generous to Pakistan, they might have an argument in this case that a river of which nearly 80% or maybe more lies in Indian territory, how come all of the water of that river has been allocated to Pakistan? Will this ever come up if IWT is renegotiated? Will IWT ever get renegotiated? Those are questions that lie in the future. I told you Chenab comes in as two rivers, Chandra and Bhaga, Its old Sanskrit name was Chandrabhaga. In the course of time, I think in Al-Baruni's time, it was named as the Chenab. Then it cuts through Pir Panjal mountains and near place called Padar in Kishtwar goes into Jammu and Kashmir. From Pangi Valley in Himachal Pradesh to Padar in Kishtwar, it goes into Jammu and Kashmir. If India takes a little bit of this water out, it's not going to materially affect the river. However, it establishes a principle that India can now use water from these rivers, not yet for storage, but not yet for storage directly, but actually for carrying out inter-basin transfers. In this case, water has gone from a river that normally would have gone into Jammu and Kashmir into Indian Punjab, and then that water will become a part of the larger Chenab-Beas system, which irrigates and supplies drinking water to Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, and Rajasthan. In the entire picture of things, it will not be such a big deal. It will be something, but it will not be such a big deal. Under the Rajiv Longowal Accord, for example, Punjab's share of these river waters, and then there is Haryana's share, Rajasthan's share, Delhi's share. So this 0.8 million acre feet will not make that much of a difference, except that it will establish a principle. It will establish a principle. The principle on India's part would be, look, we are not bound by Indus Waters Treaty. We are not choking you. We are not choking you. We are not denying you your share of the water. We are not denying you your share of the water. But we are doing with our share of the water what we think is best for us. We are not letting our share of the water go just because you keep putting adangas in the way or you keep putting obstacles in the way. That is one way of looking at this picture. Now, this project, again to be implemented by NHPC, is a bigger one. 2,352 crores. Again, in today's scheme of things, 2,352 crores is not such a big mega project. This is to dig, this is to burrow through a mountain for 8.7 kilometers. Stuff like that is not done. Engineering is good. After all, even the Rohtang tunnel was built, what is called as Atal tunnel, not far away in the same mountains. That can be done, and that can be done in 4 years. In this case, the tenure of the project is 49 months. That is 4 years and 1 month. You will see a lot of commentary here and there from some people saying that this will create 4,000 megawatts of additional power generation capacity in Punjab. No, that's not true. This will only go and feed a power plant which already has 990 megawatt. Maybe that power plant will have a more consistent supply of water. Similarly, on the Pakistani side, to say that this is going to starve Pakistan of water, that in Kharif season, Pakistani paddy crops will dry up because of this, that's also entirely exaggerated, if I may say so, enormously more so than the belief or the claims on this side that this will produce 4,000 megawatts of extra water. 4,000 megawatts of hydroelectric capacity needs enormous amounts of water and enormous amounts of gradient as well. There's a lot of reading on the Indus Waters Treaty issue because it's been going on for more than 65 years now. However, some of the recent readings deserve attention. One is a Substack writing that KBS Sidhu, former Chief Secretary of Punjab, usually does. So there is one Substack from him, of which I will share a link with you. Please check it out. The other is a very interesting paper that I found. This is written by Ajmal Shah, who is a lawyer in Jammu and Kashmir High Court. This paper is headlined Water, Warfare and Kashmir, and Ajmal Shah argues that Pakistani argument that they are fighting for the people of Kashmir on an ideological basis is wrong. All the Pakistanis are concerned with is control over the rivers, particularly the catchment areas of the main rivers flowing into Pakistan. And that's the reason Ajmal Shah says Pakistan has made such an investment in terror operations or sending infiltrators in the Pir Panjal range, or what is called as south of Pir Panjal range, not in the valley. So far the belief, and I've also talked about this, belief is that infiltrators come in from Punch, Rajouri area, then they spend a lot of time going over the Pir Panjal range, which is not that easy to transcend, particularly there is a lot of army, particularly as there is a lot of army present there. They go over that and come into Kashmir Valley and carry out operations there. In fact, even the group in Pahalgam, Now, the bullet casings found from many of the other incidents in the Pir Panjal region or south of Pir Panjal region before crossing in the valley match their weapons. So once again, my presumption would have been the same people traverse that route to reach the valley, and on the way they carry out operations. Ajmal Shah's view is that Pakistan is deliberately making investments in this area so they can create trouble with India's hydro projects in this area. And he says that Lashkar-e-Toiba and other groups have been carrying out maritime and underwater operations at Mangla Dam Reservoir in Pakistan by way of practice and by way of training. So India can expect trouble with its hydro projects. He says also that Pakistani spokesmen now are also saying that they will not allow India to build these projects. And I will quote from his paper. He says, the proxy and the patron are speaking from the same script. Then, while reading this, I discovered something that I didn't know about, and I will research and find it out. He says that Parvez Musharraf, when he was a brigadier and doing a course at Royal College of Defence Studies in UK, there he wrote a thesis. In that thesis, he said, he basically took away the ideological aspect of Pakistani claims over Kashmir, and he said it's mainly about control of water. It's not about Kashmir. It's not about people of Kashmir Valley. In that thesis, he implies, or so Ajmal Shah says, Pakistan does not want to capture or occupy all of Kashmir Valley, but just get control over its water. This is the same Brigadier Musharraf that later became General and President of Pakistan. So not any ordinary Pakistani military officer. That is something that he says was repeated by Muhammad Akbar Khan, who is a former president of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So once again, water is now center stage, and that was also the intention of Modi government when they decided to put Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance. That is not weaponizing water. That is to say that, look, if you want to use violence and terror as an instrument of state policy, then you cannot take goodwill from the other side or water goodwill from the other side on granted. At least you cannot then expect that India will keep waiting, as it's been for more than 60 years, even to exercise its own rights over the little bit of water that it can store or use.